deal with airplane peanuts?
I did a podcast not long ago and I spilled water all over my laptop. There's always something going on.
Yeah.
Technology is not my friend. You know what I mean? I try real hard, but it just feels like by the time I'm not even old, but it feels like by the time I get something, there's a new thing breaking.
Yeah, you're buying like the the version right before the one you're always about to have. I feel like that too a lot.
Yeah, it's like you get a new computer and then you're like, all right, now I'll get a new camera. And then the new camera films in 4K. And then you're like, oh, now my computer can't handle it. Let's get a new, and it's just like, it's endless.
And they got to be working together to just keep making stuff to keep making you buy more stuff. That's what I think. We might as well just get right into it. Welcome on to the 7th episode of the Joke World podcast. Amazing guest today. You all know him, love him. You see him on Netflix. Netflix is a joke festival, touring comedian all over the country. Dusty Slay.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
You know, we talked about all these technical difficulties, and even now, right on the video, is if I look down, the circles are gone, but my face is dark. But if I look up, boom, now there's circles in my eyes.
Yeah, you look the same here both ways, but it does kind of maybe change a little bit. And we're talking just how that happened right when I started introducing you. My background went from the logo I had to a blue screen, literally right as I was introducing you. So I'm going to just flip that over real quick. It's funny, we're talking about technical difficulties, and there we go. Just made it so much better. This is how it is doing these podcasts on Zoom. A lot of technical difficulties, but we'll be able to get through it, I think. Have you been doing a lot of podcasts recently? I saw you just on Whiskey Ginger.
Well, since Netflix came out, I've done a ton of podcasts. I do a lot of podcasts in the country music world.
Okay.
So I did a lot of, country singers podcasts and stuff like that. A few comedy ones. I did Whiskey Ginger most recently. And now I am a regular co-host on the Nate Land podcast with Nate Bargatze.
Nice.
So, a lot going on. And I have my own podcast that I do, pretty sporadically, but I still do it.
So you and Nate are some of the biggest Nashville comedians that, based out of there. Theo moved there, Theo Von recently. Is there a big uptick in like stage times and mics in Nashville? I feel like it's becoming kind of like Austin in a way, a new comedy space.
Well, we don't have as many like clubs. We have one great club, Zanies, and then you have, if you're in with Zanies, it's really great because you get to do. There's a Monday night show every night or every Monday every week, and it's really great. And then I have a show that I do monthly. Other comics have shows they do monthly, and then there's other random showcases. And there are some rooms around the area. I mean, Nashville's just great in general, but I feel like if you're up and coming, there may not be as many opportunities for you. There are some, but I feel like there may not be as many. Yeah. Whereas Austin, I think, has a ton of, I don't know as much about Austin. I've done the Moon Tower Comedy Festival there, and I had a lot of fun. And I understand that they are getting more clubs. So Austin may have more going on than Nashville, but I think Nashville's a better place to live.
Have you seen, because like your persona on stage and some other guys like maybe Theo Von, you have like a real maybe country like theme, or like it's not even like maybe on purpose, it's just who you are, and it works really well for you guys because it's very authentic. Have you seen anyone coming into maybe Nashville scene being like, I want to be a comedian based out of here, that kind of puts it on a little bit, maybe tries to do like a fake southern comedy thing?
I don't know. I feel like that could happen, but I think, what happens with me is like, I grew up in Alabama, right? And I grew up real Southern, real country. And then, I moved to Charleston, South Carolina for 10 years. And now I'm back in Nashville, and it's like a bit of my accent went away, right? But I learned to be funny as a Southern country guy. So when I get on stage, it's like I go back into that, where I feel like my accent gets a little heavier on stage. And I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just how I've learned to be funny all growing up.
That makes sense. Yeah.
but I'm just like every day walking around in my life, I'm not trying to be funny every moment of the day,
Right. Yeah.
So, but it's hard to say. I don't think there's really anybody personally that I know that's faking it.
Mhm.
But I think I heard someone say the other day that when you're on stage, you're like, as a comedian, you're like a heightened version of yourself. So it's like some comedians want to be on all the time, and that seems exhausting. I don't know why anybody would want to live like that.
Yeah.
But for the people who aren't on all the time, it's like, yeah, we get on stage and we come alive,
Right.
that inner comedian comes out.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens.
Is there a difference in like Alabama, where you grew up, Southern, versus like Nashville, Southern? Because Nashville, I feel like, is still like, obviously you got Broadway, like country music hub, but it's not like the most Southern place. It's pretty in the middle, I would say, of the actual country.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Nashville is even different than, just Tennessee around it, Nashville's got its own vibe. I mean, it's still very Southern here, but yeah, I mean, where I grew up and where I grew up's not even so country, but my wife's Canadian, right? So she really notices the difference when we're in Nashville versus when we go visit my hometown in Alabama. And we just went down to Dauphin Island, which is, on the very tip. It's a little island just below Alabama, and it's still part of Alabama, but it's, it's a mostly undiscovered beach area where there's not a lot going on, but the whole island is a beach. So you basically have a private beach all the time. So if you're like me and you want to go to I want to go to the beach for the beach. I'm married. I got a kid. I don't care about the bars. I don't care about partying. I just want to go hang out on the beach and relax. Yeah. And that's a great place, but it's a different vibe down there. I mean, as my wife would say, who's Canadian? She's like, just a bunch of fat Southerners down here getting sunburned on the beach, Yeah. And she's right. But that's what I'm into.
Yeah. It doesn't sound bad to me. I'm in Tampa right now. I moved here about a year ago, and the beaches here, like Tampa Bay area, like Clearwater, St. Pete, they're fun, but they are slammed with vacationers, families. Oh, yeah. Like they have like the private, like tent areas all lined up. You got to really find your spots. And you don't really just go to the beach for the beach. You got a little area. You can't really move around. You can't go toss the ball around. Like a crowded beach is really no good. It takes away the whole point, kind of.
Yeah, and Tampa's really great. I've been there many times, but I don't think I've ever been to the beach while I'm in Tampa.
Yeah.
I go there for comedy and that's it.
Yeah. So you come around here, Side Splitters, is that the main?
Yeah, I did the Improv years ago, and then the from probably 2016 on, I do Side Splitters.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As some of the people that I talk to for this podcast are people in town doing Side Splitters, and I can grab them, do an interview real quick. And most people, I get the vibe that it's one of the best clubs maybe in the country. Would you say you have a favorite club besides your home one, Zanies, that you get excited to go to on tour?
Well, I do really like Side Splitters. I think it's a lot of fun. Any of those old school clubs like that, where they just really have the old school vibe, it's a lot of fun. I mean, yeah, I would say that's one of my favorites. I like, the Comedy Catch in Chattanooga. I think that's really fun. But, there's also a lot of the new clubs are really fun. Milwaukee, Wisconsin just got a new club. It's huge. And I always say I don't like the huge clubs, but it's awesome. It's like there is an old school mentality with the old school club. Sometimes you don't really get, like, the club's great. They built up this thing over the years. But like, you go to these new clubs and it's like they roll out the red carpet. You know what I mean? You're like, so it feels nice to be in there.
Yeah, maybe an old school club, like it gets the romance of it being old and many years there, but they probably aren't as inclined to do these red carpet type, because it's like, oh, this is how we've always done it. We can, treat people not bad, but probably the same way that they always have. And then the new club, it's like, we need people to come in here. Let's throw everything we got at them.
Yeah. I mean, it's like from 1 week, I do a club in, Lowell, Arkansas called the Grove. And when I do it, I always stay in this cabin out in the woods, and people, they'll go, "Oh man, you still staying in that cabin?" And I'm like, I like being in the cabin, but the guy will fly. He has a private jet. He'll come fly to Nashville and then fly me into the Grove, you know? And I'm like, it's tough to beat that kind of service.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. The cabin does not sound bad when there's a private jet attached to it also. So you were just in, you mentioned you were at Moonfest in Austin, and then you were in the Netflix is a Joke Festival too, right?
Yeah, I didn't do Moon Tower this year. I did it either, I don't exactly, early 2020 or late 2019.
Okay.
But I did Netflix as a Joke Festival just recently.
Nice. I was at Moon Tower this past year, and it was a blast. It was a ton of fun. But so gearing up for these festivals, is that any different than just going to do a road gig in as far as preparation goes for you?
I don't think so. I mean, it's different in the sense that there's industry people around. So all the, all the important people in the comedy world are hanging out and could potentially be at your show. Mm-hmm. So whereas like normally you're like, you just go up, you do comedy, you care that it goes well. I want it to go well because I care about comedy. Mm-hmm. But if it doesn't go well, it's okay.
Right.
But I don't really want to bomb in front of the biggest industry in the country, you know?
Yeah.
There's a little extra pressure, but I don't even know if they were at my show, but I also feel like I work well under pressure. So that doesn't really affect me that much.
Were you there around the time that the Dave Chappelle thing happened?
I was there after. I wasn't there at the same time, but the security really got heightened after that. In fact, even I had my own personal security guard Netflix had for me. So at all my shows, they came to my show, they stayed until I left.
That's pretty cool. That's a good response.
Yeah, when I left the venue, they left, but they stayed. Even I did a show on Friday, and then I got asked to do a second show, and the security guard stayed. So I felt like it was really unnecessary. I feel like I could use an attack on stage. I could use the press. That'd be fine for me.
That sucks.
I mean, I heard Chris Rock's sales went up really big when he got slapped. I mean, I would take a slap for upping the ticket sales,
So you heard it here first.
I've been slapped for no money before.
That's a good way to think about it. If anyone out there is at Dusty's next few shows and is feeling bold, he welcomes a slap.
Yeah, in fact, I've never got paid for getting punched. I've been punched many times, and it's always for free.
How much would it take for you? Any random person can just punch you at any time, but it's just throughout your normal life. Someone gets to buy a one-time pass, so whenever they see you, they're allowed to just sock you. What's that number for you?
Oh, it would have to be a lot, because you take a sucker punch like that, at least up on stage, you can gear yourself up. But it's like that whole who was it? Whatever the stunt man was that said he could take a punch from any person. And then he got sucker punched and then he died.
Wasn't that Harry Houdini? I think.
Houdini. Yeah. It's like, I don't need that kind of drama in my life.
Right.
Yeah. I don't really want to get punched. But I guess my point is, Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle's attacks in the end seem relatively easy. And I would take the ease of that for the drama of some ticket sales. You know what I mean? But like my ticket sales are doing fine, so I don't really need to get punched.
That guy that attacked Dave Chappelle, I think like 2 weeks later, I saw he got like arrested for like attempted murder of his roommate. Like he was done being part of society, I guess. And if he didn't get arrested at Dave Chappelle, he was.
Yeah, I mean, it's never shocks me when a person that attacks someone is guilty of attacking another person.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. So I got relatives that have been on drugs and they get off drugs and then they get back on drugs and everybody's like, I just don't know what happened. And I'm like, well, they're a drug addict. That's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. That's It's an astute observation there. And the level of person this guy's attacking, like one of the greatest comedians in the world and just his roommate, like it's crazy. He's got a lot of range for his for his terror.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like you would think once you attack Dave Chappelle, it'd be hard to get that rush again.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that same rush from attacking the roommate.
Yeah. You
don't start at the top.
Where's Jamie Foxx at? Where's all these guys stomping me? It's probably so boring to just attack one unknown.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess, I guess Chappelle's pretty ripped, but you start trying to attack Jamie Foxx. I mean, that guy is, I don't know. He always seems pretty ripped to me.
Yeah.
It's like Will Smith. It's like, he played Ali, and also I Am Legend. I mean, he's like the last surviving man on earth. If he comes attacking you, you don't, but I don't know.
And Chris Rock is not that big.
I've done comedy in the Southeast and the Midwest. I mean, I've done comedy in clubs all along the way that felt like I could get attacked at any time.
Has there ever been a close call where you said something and you're like, oh, this person might actually do something?
Well, it's hard to say. Who knows when it's a close call or not? I mean, I was at a bar or a club in Johnson City, Tennessee, which is the far east side of Tennessee, where it gets real hillbilly out there. I got a lot of friends from East Tennessee, but it can get real hillbilly out there real quick. And there was two middle-aged couples there, and they kept, going back and forth. There's only about 12 people in the whole club. This was years ago. And the four of them, it was two drunk middle-aged couples, and they kept going at me, and I kept going back with them because the show wasn't going that well anyway. So at this point, I didn't care. I'm just dealing with some drunk couples.
Yeah.
And I see the manager of the club kind of back out of the club. Like he felt like drama was about to go down and he was just going to get out of it.
For the manager.
Yeah. But after the show, I saw those two couples. One of them, I was standing over by the front door and they came out the side door of the club, and I saw them trip over a trash can and fall into the street. Oh, okay. And I just thought, geez, you're like 50-year-old people out here, so drunk you can't even stand at a club.
Blackout at
and it felt like I burned them. Even though they did it to themselves, it felt like I won in the end.
That is a win for you.
So I was just smoking a cigar, and they were, of course, I put the cigar in the ashtray of the hotel earlier before my show, and after that show, I went and dug it out of the ashtray to finish it off because I was stressed.
That's a savvy move.
And that seems like a low point when you're smoking a cigar out of the ashtray. But then you see the people you argue with trip over a trash can and fall into the street, and you're like, I win.
Yeah. At first, it sounded like it could have been a loss. You're on the secondhand cigar, but then they gave you a gift and fell over right in front of you. That's great.
Yeah. I was in a club in San Antonio one time, and there was a couple in front, and they kept talking to each other. And I was like, hey, what are you guys up to here? And the guy he's mumbling along. And I was what? And he goes, I'm getting laid tonight. And I was like, oh, well, you better get out of here then. Yeah. It's like, just go do it. Don't ruin my show because you're worried about getting laid. Just go get laid, dude.
Just go. Yeah. What are you doing here? If that's the case anyway.
Yeah. I mean, if you already know, I thought that's what the comedy show is for. You take a date to the comedy show. If it goes well, you get laid. If you already know you're getting laid, get out of there.
Yeah, you're doing an extra step. Do you find it hard to kick people out of a show, or are you ready? Just if you're interrupting, you got to get out?
Well, I get more ready to kick them out all the time because I'm like, what I like to believe is that if somebody starts to disrupt the show and then you say something to them, I don't like to insult them. That's not what my comedy is about. I'm not trying to come out here and insult people the whole time. I just want people to listen to my jokes.
Right.
And then I tell them and they laugh and then we get out of there. Mm-hmm. Some people have it in their minds that comedy is crowd work. And that's just not my kind of comedy. There are comics that do really great crowd work. And I do okay with crowd work, but that's not what I want to be doing. Mm-hmm. I want to do these jokes that I've wrote.
Right.
And, so I want to believe that I can say a little something to them. We laugh, I move on, they not do it again.
Yeah.
But it just feels like nowadays they're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So I the other night I was in a club and this guy started talking and I was like, it just irritates me so much that it's hard to turn it off. It's hard to hide.
Right. You're getting like
So
actually
like,
pissed.
actually, I'd
Yeah.
just like you to leave, you know? And then I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I don't want you to leave. Actually, I don't want you to leave. I just want you to be quiet, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm up there and I am having a good time. I'm not putting on an act. I'm waving. I'm saying we're having a good time. And
Yeah.
I am. But the moment somebody like says something, now there's different ways that people can say things. Somebody can yell something out from the audience loud enough for the whole audience to hear. I can make a joke about it and then we all laugh and it's a good time.
Yeah.
Or they can be close to the stage and they can say things that only I can hear. And those are the worst because it digs into you, but nobody else can hear. So nobody knows it's going on.
Yeah.
But I was doing a club the other night and it was a really great set. It was really going well. And this guy yells out, he goes, "Work the crowd." And I'm like, geez, dude, like,
yeah, that's absurd.
I don't
that's
come
absurd.
out here and go, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" You know, I know comics do that and a lot of them are very good at it.
Yeah.
But that's not what I want to be doing.
Right. And that's just absurd for someone to yell that
for a living.
To just demand, like, stop with your written jokes that you actually work every day on. You know, start talking to us. Like, we need some attention. That's an absurd thing to yell during a show.
Yeah, it's and then I looked at the guy. Oh man, and I wanted to throw him out of there right away. But it's not worthy of kicking the guy out.
Right.
But I get it. You know, there's a singer named Ray LaMontagne, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy. I'm sure you've heard some of his songs, but he's a real kind of soft singer. He plays guitar, real soulful kind of stuff. And I heard one time that and I don't know if this is true, I just heard it, that he demands complete silence in his show. And if people talk during his show, he gets really irritated and throws them out of there. And when I heard that, I thought, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, you know, 12 years into comedy, I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, especially because he's like, I'm trying to do this for you. It will be better if you just shut up. And like, and they don't want to it's like, he's like, it's for your own good. I'm trying to do this for you. And do you think
and people say, they go, well, you should be a better comic. You know, you gotta be able to handle that stuff. And it's like, it is true that you need to be able to handle it, but it doesn't mean that I need to be good at interacting with hecklers.
And doesn't mean that they need to manufacture it. Like, you need to be good at handling that if it happens for real, not like a real heckler gets offended by or whatever from a joke that you wrote and told. Not people being like, I have no issue with the show, but I think that this is what I'm supposed to do, so I'm just going to start yelling stuff out and be like, well, you can't handle it. It's like, well, that wasn't even necessary. That wasn't even like, that wouldn't have happened if you didn't, you know what I mean? Like, you need to handle
100%.
Yeah, that's crazy. Do you think that?
Yeah, you say I need to be able to deal with it. I say you need to not put me in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that all these clips get like we're in a real shift in comedy online where everyone is constantly sharing clips, like stand-up reels, stand-up clips, TikToks, and it seems like majority of those are crowd work, probably because you don't have to burn any material, and it really engages the person on their phone being like, oh, this, you know, I knew this wasn't written, like this just happened for like so real. So like, do you think that all these clips getting shared of crowd work is causing maybe more people to be like, I want to go to a show and maybe I'll be in the clip, or you're supposed to yell stuff out?
Yeah, I think so. I think that is what's happening because I typically share crowd interactions or riffs that happen to me, so I'm not burning up material, like you said. But it is organic when it happens for me. I have heard of some comics that at the end of their show, they'll do a Q&A, and the Q&A will be just for their clips.
Okay.
So it's like, it is really happening, but it's the comedian asking for questions from the audience and then making jokes.
Yeah.
And it's okay. People can do whatever they want, but I just feel like it's not organic. If I'm sharing a crowd interaction, it's happened to me on stage. Right.
One of the coolest things I saw at Moon Tower this year, I went to stand up on the spot, and that was cool to watch because everyone knew that was what's supposed to be happening. Like people are supposed to be yelling out the topics, and then there's like it was fun to be involved in the show, but like responsibly, or like that's literally the whole point of it. But then you go to other shows and there's people yelling stuff out, and it's like it just makes me uncomfortable, like sitting next in the area, people just like ruining a show. It's a strange thing to do.
Yeah, I can't stand it. I do like that. I used to do a show probably in 2011 or so when I was living in Charleston. Me and two other buddies, we had a show. Well, we would only get about a half hour at this theater, and we would do 15 minutes, 5 minutes a piece of our regular material. And then we would spend the next 15 minutes taking words from the audience. And then we would all three make a joke about that word. And because we had different styles of comedy, you got to see where each of our minds took that word to make a joke about.
That's cool.
And it was really fun. And it was I thought at the time, I don't know of anybody doing that, but I also wasn't connected with the rest of the comedy world. So who knows? But and that's a lot of fun, a gimmicky type show. It is fun to see, but yeah, I mean, I just feel like with COVID, with like people being locked up in their houses and now suddenly being out again, I feel like people have forgot how to act. And everybody wants internet material. They forget that we're living in reality, and they want internet material. Like I like to do a lot of gardening, and I'm always like, oh, well, I should film this, for the internet. And then I'm like, no, this is me doing something that's not for the internet. Yeah, people, you forget that you have to do like just things for the sake of doing them sometimes, which is kind of scary. Yeah, it's like we have to live life. It's like everybody, they're like, oh, I'm cooking, let me film it.
That's so
I'm guilty
strange.
of it. I got a video on the internet that's done pretty well of me cooking in an Instapot, but it's like, I've also cooked, 1,000 meals since that time.
But no one has seen you do that, so I don't know if I believe you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And if I'm not getting likes, is it even worth it?
The meal sucks without some likes. It tastes so much worse without likes.
I know, it's so wild. It is so wild, and
it's weird.
And it's just the encouragement to do it is there.
Yeah.
Everybody's pushing because it works, right? The more content you put out, the more followers you get, the more tickets you sell, and it's like, the model works, but it drains you of all your life.
Then you're just nothing is real anymore. Have you found it harder to as you've been like growing your career, starting to headline these clubs, and these people are coming out just specifically to see you, going back on people in the crowd, do you find it harder to remove people or maybe slam them a little bit because now you're the guy that they're coming to see, where maybe earlier in your career, if they're being annoying, they might not even know what lineup they're there to see, and you're just like, get out of here. But now is there any additional pressure or sentimental value?
I think it all gets better, right? Because if it's an audience of people there to see you, they're likely not to do that.
Yeah.
And then if they are doing it, you can make fun of them, and the rest of the audience is on board with you. It's like they're there to see you. So it makes comedy easier when people are there to see you because they already know a little bit of what you do, and there's less time to get to know you.
Yeah, that's got to be the worst
part. But also, there's less chance that the audience wants to yell at you. And if they do yell at you, it's usually something positive or some kind of joke request or something like that.
Yeah.
That, I don't mind. I don't mind because if somebody yells out a joke they want me to do, it's like, for me, it's like, oh, that's great. They know my material and they want to hear that joke. I may not do it. I may not even remember the joke they're requesting, at least how to tell it all the way. But it's nice. It feels good to be like, all right, you know my stuff.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. That's like, it's encouraging. It's not even really heckling at that point. So you if you do remember it though, you're likely to do a request if someone really wants it.
Yeah, I mean, I did a show. I mean, it's hard, especially if I have like jokes that I really want to do.
Right.
And I, say I have 2 shows a night. I'm doing the early show, and I got jokes that I really want to do. Adding another joke in there can be hard, just for time's sake.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I mean, I was in Knoxville one time and we just had one show. I'd never done shows in Knoxville. And at the end of my set, a guy yelled out a joke. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that joke. And then I did it. And then somebody yelled another one and somebody yelled another one. And
cool.
I bet I did, 20 minutes or more of joke request.
Oh, that's cool. That's
and
awesome.
It was really fun to do. And it was like, there was no time that I had to be out of there. So it was like, yeah, let's just roll with it.
Yeah, that sounds like the dream, because it's like just playing your greatest hits at that point. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, because sometimes that's what it is for comedy. It's like I got a lot of jokes that I really like and would love to tell, but I did them on the Tonight Show or I did them on Netflix. And I'll repeat some, just because I like doing them, but for the most part I try to do all new jokes.
Yeah. So how is your process coming up with new jokes? Like, you're right. Are you a pen to paper guy, or are you on stage just work it out?
I'm more of an on stage work it out. I find that, sometimes I do need to write the idea down when it comes to me, or I'll forget.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I like to just go and try to work it out on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I find that, I don't know, early on, I was all about pen and paper, but now I find that on stage, I can just get up there and you can rely on those natural instincts that made you funny in the first place.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people forget that.
In school, making people laugh, I wasn't writing it down going, all right, I'm going to say this next.
Yeah.
You're just popping out with stuff.
Yeah. That's when people be like their true voice. I feel like starting out in comedy, like doing open mics and stuff, it's like I need to like write down something like a setup and a punchline, or try to be edgy, or try to do this or that, or try to do how the guys that you watch that you like what their style is or whatever. But then once people realize like, why do I think I'm funny enough in the first place to even be doing this at all? Like what makes me funny? When did I think I was funny? It's like, oh, hang out with your friends, like at the lunch table, that kind of stuff. Like when you're not thinking about what you're about to say, you're just kind of like going off of the conversation at hand, and you're not writing that down, exactly like you said. I feel like that's like when people start to get good, is like when they're just talking how they just literally are, just how they exist, and not trying to be a comedian, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like this comic I know, he had this idea. He said, comedy is like a tree, right? And the main part of the trunk, that's your act, that's your jokes. Mm-hmm. And then you're going up, and then when you want to go off on a tangent, you kind of go out on a limb. And you keep going and you keep going. And when you get too far out there and it starts to bend, the joke's not working as well, you bring it back to your act. And I feel like that's a good analogy, probably a good redneck analogy, but it's like, that's what I like to do. I like to, I say sometimes, my joke ends long before I stop talking, right? Because I'll get big laughs and then I'll keep trying to milk the joke. I'll keep doing stuff until we're not even laughing anymore. And then I'm like, all right, we're having a good time, and we get out of there. Right. But it's like that to me is fun.
Yeah.
It's like, we already got a good laugh out of it. I feel like I got a good laughs per minute type ratio in my show where I'm like punch. So I'm like, yeah, if we can waste a couple of lines if it's worth giving, worth trying to get a new laugh.
Is that something that you at any point ever like actually sat down to calculate, like, I want this many laughs per minute, or was that just a natural flow of like the jokes that you write?
Yeah, it's just a fear of being on stage without people laughing, basically. It's like, if, about we're having a good time, and I wonder if I just adjusted something that I'm wondering if that changes the volume. And if it does, I'm an idiot. But I did a TED Talk on we're having a good time. And, the first part that I wrote of the TED Talk was jokes. Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm hitting the jokes and I'm going, all right, that's great. And then once I started getting to a more serious part, the audience stopped laughing. And I'm like, oh no, I'm bombing. But there were no jokes, right? So I wasn't bombing.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. I mean, I blanked out, and then I just started telling jokes from my act and then once I would get more comfortable, then more jokes would come,
Yeah.
or more part of the TED Talk would come to me. But I'm
That's
like, I
funny.
don't like the serious stuff.
That's really funny. That's probably speaks to how natural of a comedian you are, that you're supposed to be doing a TED Talk, but without the laughs, it's just like, I just got to go back to my act. That's great.
Yeah, it's like I'm on stage, and I just feel like when I'm on stage to do comedy.
Yeah. So do you think that it's hard to like tell a longer story, or something that might take like 2 minutes to set up, or maybe you even have to like pretend to be like real serious for like 2 minutes, like try to really set up a longer joke? Do you try to stay away from that because it's uncomfortable when no one's laughing to even set up a premise, or is that fine because you know that the payout's coming?
It's much harder for me to do that. I have a joke now that I'm doing where it's a 3-minute joke, and the story has a good punch at the end, but it's more of a story. So I've been learning to tell this story. And as time goes on, I do have punchlines now throughout where it is getting laughs. But in the beginning, I did it at the Grand Ole Opry. It was 4,000 people in the audience, and it's a 3-minute joke. And I'm used to getting laughs about every 15 seconds, right? I get a little bit of something.
Right.
And for 3 minutes, no one laughed. They just looked at me. And I was like, man, if this punchline at the end doesn't pay off, this is going to be the biggest bomb I've ever had, I think.
Oh, God.
And fortunately, I hit the punchline at the end. The whole place laughed, and it was like well worth it.
Yeah.
So that's what, I got afraid of that in the beginning, because that's what they always say. If you're going to have a long story with one punchline at the end, then that punchline better be worth it.
Right. Yeah.
Because I got a lot of jokes where there's not really much of an ending to the joke, but we're laughing all along the way. There's so many punches all along the way that by the time that joke ends, I just move right into the next thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not so much about closure for me. It's just about, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Right. A laugh is a laugh. So if it's along the way or at the end, it doesn't matter.
That's what I say all the time. I say, that joke doesn't have a real ending, but we had a lot of fun along the way.
Yeah. And that's a joke in itself too. It's just because like, people think a joke's supposed to have an end. So then you addressing that it doesn't, that's a whole nother joke there too.
Yeah. I feel like I'm influenced by a lot of people, but like Mitch Hedberg has a couple of on his albums. I remember him saying stuff like, that's not a full joke there.
Yeah.
And he does it in his way. And I feel like I've picked that up in a sense where I'll do things like that.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I don't know, Steve Martin and Mitch Hedberg both had an influence on me just in kind of the silliness of what they would do, where it's like, yeah, I'm writing jokes and my act is funny, but it's like, if a joke doesn't work, let's not get so bent out of shape. Let's not take it so seriously.
Yeah.
We are just telling jokes up here.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I really feel like I picked up on when I was at that last festival I just attended, because I saw 7 hours of comedy a night for like 5 nights in a row, just like professionals, just getting after it. And it was like, when they're trying new stuff, or like something doesn't go well, or maybe the crowd's dead and a joke kind of falls flat, the comedian addressing that it's like so much funnier than them just like moving on or being like just trying to get to the next joke, or like acting like that didn't happen, when they're just like, oh, like, all right, moving on, or like, all right, you're not gonna like this next one either, or just addressing when that doesn't go well, just gets a huge laugh like every time. And that's like, wow, I like, that makes so much sense. Like we can't forget that, like we all know what's going on here, and it's way funnier to address what's happening than try to act like that didn't happen.
Yeah. And it's like, to me, it's like that is so much the part of being funny, is like growing up, you're like joking away your mistakes, or joking away your I don't know the word, but whatever you're uncomfortable about, any of your self-consciousness, you're like, that's how you joke it away.
Yeah.
So bombing a joke and joking that away, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
Like that's how you learn to be funny in the first place.
Yeah.
At least me. I mean, I guess different people learn different stuff, but for me, that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
making a mistake and then being able to make a joke that everybody forgets the mistake because you were so funny about it.
Do you find it harder as a established name now trying out brand new things where it might be so silly that you're like, I don't even know if I want to like try out a new joke unless I know that it's 100% going, like, this is gold?
Well, for me, I never know what's going to be gold, right? Sometimes I'll think of something and I'll go, this is going to be fantastic. And then I go tell it and no one laughs and I can't understand why. And I may keep telling the joke for a long time just because I don't understand why the audience doesn't think it's funny.
Right.
But then
and if you think it's
times,
funny,
you know,
there's got to
you're
be
like,
something.
What's that?
And then if you think it's funny, there's got to be something there. I'm like,
yeah, you know, and that's what I heard one time. If you think a joke's funny and the audience is not laughing, then you've just not figured out how to write it yet. And I think that's probably true. I mean, I got a joke in the middle of a bit now that I wrote years ago and it never worked. Actually, I have a joke about the Waffle House that probably happened to me in 2010. And I just started doing the joke. I mean, I wrote it down, you know, 12 years ago. And I just started doing it because I tried it once on stage. It bombed. And I go, well, I guess there's nothing there. But then I remembered it. And I just started doing it again. And now it's a huge hit for me. It's a great joke.
Wow.
So it's like, you know, it's just, you become better at comedy and some of your old ideas are better now because you're funnier.
Yeah. That's a good point. I guess you don't think of either, is like, you keep getting funnier. Do you think that you get funnier every year of your life? Like, or at least from starting comedy, like, is there any limit to how, this is kind of a broad question, I guess. Is there any limit to how funny that you can get?
I don't know. I mean, I think that as long as you're always working it, right? You're always on stage. And as long as you stay up to date with what the culture is doing, right? I feel like this happens to a lot of older comics, is they lose touch with what the culture is doing, or they just stop caring. And then they just seem out of touch. And I think it's hard to be funny when you're out of touch. You know, it doesn't even mean that you have to agree with everything that's going on. It doesn't mean that you have to address it, but you have to know where things are going, to know what you can and can't say. I mean, and it's like, that seems weird to say in a, you know, a free speech kind of society, but it's like, it's just the way it is, right? It's like when you start saying stuff that the culture has moved away from, then you become irrelevant, you know? Or if you're not working it. But I also, and this is not something I've dealt with, so I don't know, but I feel like it must be harder for super popular comics
and rich
to write new jokes, because the audience loves you, right? And they just think you're so funny. That they're laughing at all your stuff. So it's like, are you still being funny? Like, if you were to get dropped in front of a group of people that had no idea who you were, would you be funny to them?
I feel like that's a lot. Like, I try listening to like a brand new podcast, like that's like 150 episodes in. It's like, I don't even get half these references. Like, but like, there's a million people following this. Like, everyone, it's hilarious to everyone because they know what's going on, or they just love whatever these people say. Like, they're going to love it. So that's, and when people get like astronomically wealthy from doing stand-up, I feel like it can be hard to be like telling jokes that are relatable to the people listening, because the audience is going to be just an audience, you know?
Right. When you're never around normal people, you know, like, if it's like, because even for me, right, like, I'm like, I just fly all the time because I'm always doing gigs, right? So I'm just flying every weekend, right? So I fly with one airline. So my status got really high with that airline, to where I have the highest status that you can get with that airline. So I get upgraded to first class. I've never bought a first class ticket, but I get upgraded probably 80% of the time to first class. And then they offered me this kind of club that, you know, you go to the airport and you sit in the special room, you know, with the airline. And it's like, it feels so phony to me. Like it feels like I shouldn't belong in first class or in the club.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is the best. I got free coffee. I got free snacks. I'm away from everyone. I got better Wi-Fi. I got more comfortable chairs. Of course I want this, but it's like, how do you write jokes about like, yeah, I was in first class the other day, and then I had all this arm room, you know, or whatever it is.
Yeah, you guys know about the lounge.
It's like if you're no longer relatable, right? Yeah, exactly. It's like if you're not relatable to what people are up to, but those things I think are just small. Like I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I don't think, but I mean, once you actually get wealthy, I don't know what that's like. Me and my wife about that the other day. It's like, she's like, I don't think that you'll ever become like that because you like picking up stuff off the side of the road too much, you know? She's like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you still want to pick up a computer chair off the side of the road, you know?
If it's a good deal.
And that is true.
Yeah.
I can't resist. I have a table on my back porch that my neighbor threw out the other day.
If it looks good, I mean, I totally get that.
I'm like, oh, that's a good table. How are you going to throw that out?
Free stuff feels so good. And you feel like you got
I don't know what people are up to just throwing things out.
No. I saw, what was it? The bit about the chairs, unloading the chairs at Goodwill. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I forgot I even told that joke, but that some patio chairs and the wood, it was very good metal chairs. So it wasn't like I was trying to dump trash out at Goodwill, but the seat was wooden and broke. It had a good cover. It just needed a new bottom to it, which would be easy to do, especially if someone's in woodworking. It shows how much money everybody actually has, that even Goodwill's like, nah, we can't sell these chairs that could be easily fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, some lady, I don't know who it was. It was a man's name, and then it signed off as a woman's name on YouTube, lecturing me about that joke. And I was like, you know, they're like, you shouldn't just dump your trash off at Goodwill. And I'm like, well, it wasn't trash. They took the table. It was a metal table with a glass top. They took it, but I got 3 chairs off. My sister was there with me. She was moving all slow, and she wouldn't get the 4th chair. And then the Goodwill guy was like, no, we can't take these. We can't take these. So I had to load it back up. And I didn't know where to go with it. I didn't have a truck at the time.
Right.
So I'm like, let's just go over here to this Big Lots and throw it in the trash.
What else are you going to do? I mean, yeah.
Right. And she's like, well, they may videotape your license plate and you may get fined. And it's like, fine. You know what I mean? If they find me, they find me. But I need somebody to come pick this up.
Yeah. So, I feel like Goodwill's kind of stingy with the stuff that they are willing to accept. Like, here's 3 pretty good chairs, and then what's wrong with this? I mean, they just want like brand new stuff at Goodwill. That defeats the whole purpose.
Right. It's like, you know, it's a good, I mean, I guess they think, well, we'll never be able to sell these, but it's like, to me, that shows like even people shopping at Goodwill are like, nah, I won't fix these. I need chairs that are already in perfect condition.
Yeah.
There's a trend going on TikTok that I see where it says, it's a, you know, a voice audio that people are using. And it says, you know, you're not good at being poor. Right. And it's like just showing that it's like, if you're poor, but able-bodied, you can still have good stuff.
Yeah.
Just take something that's bad and make it good.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to make anything good. They just want the best stuff. And if it's not the best, they just want to, you know,
the lazy
throw it in the trash.
Can't be poor and lazy. That's not a good combination.
Right. I think that's the audio. Yeah. You can't be poor and lazy.
Yeah. That's funny.
And it's like, it is true. I mean, I love to build stuff. I mean, it's so great.
Yeah. And it's rewarding too.
I'm not even that good at building things, but I like doing it.
The process of building.
I built the desk that I'm sitting on right now, and it's been creaking the whole time. I mean, anytime I move off of it, it creaks. It makes a lot of noise. I'm sure there's a way to fix it, but I don't know how. But I had to replace wood off my back porch, and I took some of the old wood that was still good, and I built this desk, and then I sanded all the wood, and then I stained it. And it's great.
That sounds really fun too. It's a whole process.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
And
to
then I
some.
drilled holes in it
Go
so I
ahead.
could put the mic stand inside of the desk. I mean,
Wow,
yeah.
and you can be proud of it too. I think you're frozen for a little. Oh, there you go. Okay, I put on our community section questions for you first to see if we had some people send in questions. There's a few interesting ones I want to hit here at the end. Someone said, do you think that Alabama has potential to develop a formidable comedy scene, maybe in cities like Birmingham or Mobile?
Well, I hope so. I don't know. Birmingham has a club. They have a club called the Stardome. I think it's all about someone just doing it, right? It's like Huntsville, Alabama has a really good club and it's doing really well. And I wouldn't say the Stardome is a bad club. I think they've created a bad model where they give away so many free tickets. And it's like, you can't do good shows with free tickets, right?
Right.
But I think if you're a real draw, you can do the Stardome in Birmingham. It could be a lot of fun because people actually will come and pay tickets. But Mobile is interesting because I was just in Dauphin Island, which is about 45 minutes below Mobile.
Mhm.
And I just can't understand why Mobile wouldn't have a good club. But, you know, New Orleans doesn't really have a club either. And they're all kind of right in that coast. So I don't know
Yeah.
what that is. I did shows and I opened for Burt Kreischer at a theater in New Orleans one time. And it was really fun. The audiences really came out. It was really great. And then recently I opened for Fortune Feimster in Mobile.
Mhm.
And the same thing we had. I mean, me and Fortune were walking down the street and people were just pouring out of the bars to meet Fortune.
Wow.
Like, it's like everybody downtown was downtown to see her show.
Wow.
Now, some of the people knew me, but they were really
Mhm.
pouring out of the streets for her. And I'm like, so there clearly is enough people to make a good club.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Sometimes I think that in a certain area, it's like people want a certain kind of comedy, and there
Mhm.
just is not enough comics of any certain kind of comedy to give people a consistent thing. You know, it's like
Right.
there's the comedy zones and they have it's a chain. They really branch out. You know, they franchise out all these
Mhm.
clubs. And so if you become a comedy zone, the comedy zone has a lineup of comics that they'll send your way. But so many of those comics are not good.
Right.
So
They're just in
you
with the
go,
comedy zone.
I'm the, what's that?
They just get in with the comedy zone and now they're on the roster
Yeah,
for.
it's like, I guess, you know, I'm saying they're not good. And I guess that's relative because people do like them. But I just think overall it's an outdated model, right?
Yeah.
Like so many of those comics have been with the comedy zone for a long time. So, you know, you get this club and then, all right, people come out and they go, this is my theory.
Mhm.
People come out and they go, all right, we got a new club in town. Let me go see some comedy. And then the first week, it's like some old school road comic doing jokes from the 90s. And you're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, that wasn't really my thing, but it was only one time. We'll go back next week and we'll see. And then you go back next week and it's the same thing. So
Yeah.
you're like, oh, okay, well, I won't go back there.
Yeah. And then you
And
think
then
that's
only
what
the people that
comedy is.
like that kind of comedy are coming. And that is a dwindling audience,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. And then it's even hard. Then you set your whole club off based off that type of comedy, those type of fans. And then when you can get a guy on the road, maybe like yourself or something, like now it's a whole different thing. So then the normal people are coming out to see something different and it's not what they expect. And then you're trying to get your people
Right.
in there. And it's like,
The people that like the old 90s comedy are now seeing something fresh and they're like, oh, I don't like that. So then
Yeah.
the booker goes, well, I'd love to book you, but you just don't work in my clubs.
yeah, it's like you made it this way. You
Right.
did it this way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems like a terrible system.
But I think Mobile does have the potential. I mean, because I did a theater show with Fortune and I don't know how many people, at least 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's like they are there.
Do you think that it's just like, I've heard this about, I think I heard Mark Norman say this about New Orleans. It's like they just have too much other stuff to do. They're like, they don't want to just sit and silently and listen to someone talk. Like there's too much partying and stuff to go on there. Maybe, do you think that could be at play in some of these areas?
Well, that could be true. You know, the same could be said about Nashville. And that's what's great about Zanies is outside of downtown, not far outside, but it is outside. It's like I don't think a comedy club in downtown Nashville works
Right.
because
On Broadway.
people
Yeah.
are there to party
Yeah.
and they don't want to sit down. And maybe that's the problem for New Orleans. Mobile, I don't know. I don't know how much partying's going on, but I do have just a theory about Alabama in general. It's like during football season, it's like Friday night is high school football,
Yeah.
Saturday night is college football, and Sunday is pro. And it's like Alabama loves football.
Right. So who I've always actually wondered this, who's Alabama, who's the NFL team that most people root for growing up in Alabama?
Well, growing up, we always liked the Atlanta Falcons because I grew up on East Alabama. So I'm 2 hours from Atlanta. I was 15 minutes from Georgia. In Alabama, you have to be 19 to buy cigarettes, and there's no lottery. So when I was 18, I would drive to Georgia for cigarettes and lottery tickets. That's how close we were.
Okay.
And then, but yeah, Atlanta was mainly the team, but you would also, the Miami Dolphins I liked.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will pull for the Saints. They're pretty close.
Why do you think that they've never tried to like have a pro influence there? Like,
I think it's because Alabama football college is so big.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because
I mean, it's practically an NFL team with just, I mean, the stadium seats over 100,000.
Yeah.
I mean, they're selling out most games.
What about what's his name just said, Jimbo Fisher, about Nick Saban just really like
I think it's wild. I mean, I don't understand what's just happened. I guess I'm out of the loop. I mean, I saw what Jimbo said.
Yeah.
But apparently college players are getting paid now, I guess, and I missed all that.
It's only been like a year.
I don't really understand the argument.
Yeah.
But I love it. I mean, I love that kind of rivalry where it's like, everybody's got to be sick of Nick Saban. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
But it's like Nick Saban's been dominating for, 14 years in college football.
A godly run. Like, no one has ever, even like Belichick didn't do that. Like, this is different. Like, no one even wraps their head around what Nick Saban has really done. Like,
yeah. So I get it. Everybody is tired of him and I get it, but I also love it.
And it makes sense. Like the stuff that Jimbo Fisher was saying, like he just basically just kind of called him an asshole. It's like, no one thought Nick Saban was like the most loving. Like, if you're Nick Saban, if you're that great at being a college coach, you're definitely an asshole. Like, look at what Urban Meyer, like all these guys.
Yeah, you devote your whole life to it. I never thought Nick Saban would be a good hang.
Yeah.
Dabo Sweeney looks like a good hang, but Nick Saban doesn't.
No, that was obvious. I've never been like, I would love to toss him back with Nick Saban. Just kind of
right. Yeah, that'd be a blast, huh?
Yeah. But I'd love to pick his brain about football. I'd be kind of scared. I'd be like very timid. Like, that's how it is, though. It wasn't that surprising. All right, we'll do one more question. This is another interesting one. I love talking football. I always get off topic talking football, but this is back to comedy. What is it like being on Jimmy Fallon and Conan? And they also said, who's better? What show you like doing better?
Well, I was on Fallon and Kimmel. I never got to do Conan, which is really bums me out. Because I would have liked to do that. Actually, I was in talks with the Conan booker one time, and then I don't know what happened. He never liked my videos I sent. I don't know what happened, but then I got booked by Jimmy Kimmel in the meantime. And then I've gotten to do Fallon 3 times. Oh, wow. So my experience, has been great with both. Mm-hmm. But now that I've done Fallon 3 times, and ultimately that's what gave me the big push. Yeah. Kimmel, it was almost like a practice run because I had never done a late night before. So it was like my intro to what that's like.
Okay.
And then, so by the time I got to do the Tonight Show, I was better prepared.
Yeah.
But both of them couldn't have been nicer to me. Jimmy Kimmel was so nice. He came over, he talked with me a bit before the show. And then he said, and I don't know if you've, the person asking the question has actually watched it, but there's a noticeable difference in how my set go. Like, I did a lot of those jokes on my Netflix special, because I never felt like those jokes, my trailer park jokes, I never felt like they got a good time in the sun, because I wanted them to be on a late night, but then they just didn't go that well. And I'm like, that's not a fair representation of how good those jokes go.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm doing them on Netflix.
Yeah.
And, but I just, Jimmy Kimmel came up to me right before and he goes, this is a weird audience tonight. So whatever you get out of them, you earned.
Huh.
And a lot of people think that's a bad thing to say to me, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I was actually like, that gave me a little confidence because I was like, all right, I may not do real well, but at least Jimmy Kimmel just told me that you may not do real well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes the pressure off. And then if it doesn't go that well, you're not like embarrassed that Jimmy Kimmel saw it because he's the one that told you like what the deal. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If Jimmy Kimmel goes, this is a hot audience tonight, you're about to crush it. And then I go out and they're not laughing. I'm like, oh, what happened?
Yeah. He was like, it was a hot audience. Yeah.
Yeah. But Fallon, I've gotten to do that show 3 times and he has always been so nice to me. He always comes by, talks to me. And the booker for Jimmy Kimmel, she hooked me up. I had never done a late night before. And I'm so thankful that she booked me, but Fallon really gave me the break that I needed.
Yeah. What's the like behind the scenes like there? Is it really nice? Like how like private entrance or green room, kind of like being on the show? Is it are you wined and dined?
Yeah, I mean, they really take care of you. I mean, they've always put me up in a nice place. And they come in, they pick you up from the hotel, even though it's a very short walk, they still come and pick you up. And then, in the backstage, it's really fun. It's like, because you just see other people who are going to be on the show. Like, I saw Janet Jackson backstage one time. I saw, I think it's Blake Russell, the NBA player, backstage one time. Mark Maron came up to me. I'd never talked to Mark Maron, but he was on there pushing a TV show he was doing. And I was on there doing comedy. So I guess, both of us just being comics, he came over and talked to me for a bit. And I was just like, that's amazing.
Yeah, that is cool. Did you notice, you said that the Fallon gave you more of like of that bump. A lot of people say nowadays, like podcasts, like going on like Joe Rogan or even like this past weekend is like, would be way bigger for a comic's career than the late night shows nowadays. A lot of people like to say maybe late night's time has passed, but do you think that you did get a good bump on your social medias, on your views or ticket sales after going on those late night shows? Like, what do you think about the landscape of late night?
I mean, I think that they're right. A big podcast can really lift you up, but it's like, podcasting is not what I do best, right? Stand-up comedy is what I do best. So I can talk all day. I can say all kinds of things, but comedy is what I do best.
Yeah.
So it's like, I would rather be known for my stand-up than for my podcasting,
That's a great point.
But it's like, when I did Fallon the first time, Fallon, if you really crush it on there, that gets the industry really involved with what you're doing. And that's what happened for me. I did Fallon, I got new management, I got agents, and it's like, I've been headlining clubs nonstop since my first appearance on Fallon.
Wow.
And that's so awesome. It's like, living in Nashville, not living in LA or New York, I don't really get invited on a lot of the big podcasts. I'm not upset about it. I get it. I'm not around.
Right.
But so, I mean, I, give credit where people have helped me, and late night has really helped me.
Yeah. And that's something I never thought about, I guess, maybe because it seems like nowadays it's like any exposure is basically just all towards like, it's all just like clips, views, everything in one bucket, just towards like a career, it seems like. But I never really like realized like, you get to do stand-up on those shows. That's why it's different. Maybe it, more comedy fans are like, I'm going to follow everyone that's on JRE this week, Rogan, whatever, but you don't get to do stand-up. You just get to talk about anything, like aliens, government, like it doesn't matter. Like that's not what you're trying to do, is sell your stand-up tickets. That's a great point.
Yeah, and it's all about saying something crazy and wild. Oh, you go on and you say something crazy and then it gets clipped up. And I got plenty of crazy stories, but I
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really want some wild story clipped up and then passed around a bunch, going viral to where everyone in my family sees this wild story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
I
not,
always
I
think
love
about that.
telling a wild, dirty story as much
Yeah.
as anyone, but I'm like, I don't know. It's just not as fun to see yourself get clipped up and shown all over the world,
Yeah, and it's got to be real. Like it can't just be like, oh, I got this big opportunity on a podcast. What are some of my crazy stories I have? Like maybe we'll talk
Right.
about like that's not authentic. That's like not what people are into, I don't think, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right.
100%.
But
Well,
I do have to get going, but I do appreciate you having me on here.
yeah, 100%. I was just about to say thank you again for coming on. It was great to meet you. Great to talk some comedy with you. And then if you have any dates or any socials you want to plug real quick for the YouTube.
Well, yeah, I'm launching my second half of the year tour. I'm calling it the Boy Named Dusty tour. As reference to the Johnny Cash song "Boy Named Sue." And I hate tour names, but we did. DustySlade.com is my website. That's where all my stuff's at. I have a YouTube channel, which is why I was really happy that you asked this, because you do your podcast on YouTube. And I think my YouTube channel is my most creative and most unique of my social medias, because I have a lot of different kinds of stuff on here. But my website is DustySlade.com. And starting in mid-June, I'll be in Huntsville, Alabama. And then my tour will start. And it won't be every weekend, but it'll be pretty much every weekend for the rest of the year that I'll be out somewhere doing comedy somewhere in the country.
Awesome. Book schedule. Go look it up, DustySlade.com. We'll make sure to tag the YouTube in the description of this video as well. Thank you again. Great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.